Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to, well, cut through the noise, bring you some solid insights on some of humanity's biggest questions. And today we're really diving into profound territory. We're tackling two huge, enduring mysteries. First, that age-old question, is there a creator? And, what's our place in this huge kind of bewildering universe? And maybe even more pressing for our daily lives, if there is a creator, what does that mean for where our ethics actually come from? We're looking today for a perspective that honestly just makes sense in our modern age, something fresh, logical, maybe even empowering based on the sources we've been digging into. So for you listening, this is hopefully a chance to shortcut your way to being really well informed on these massive puzzles. Expect some surprising facts, maybe a new perspective. Okay, let's unpack this.
Exactly. And that's really our dual mission today, isn't it? First, we want to build maybe the best case we can for a unique way of understanding a creator. We've got this really thought-provoking analogy that kind of shifts our usual perspective. It positions humanity maybe not at the absolute center of everything, but still with a really significant vital role. Then we'll move from the cosmic right down to the deeply personal. We'll explore how a robust, actionable, and pretty compelling ethical framework can emerge, and crucially, one that stands independently of any direct divine commands. This framework, as we'll lay out, is deeply grounded in our shared reality, our basic drive for survival, and, well, our amazing capacity for cooperation. What's really fascinating, I think, is how these two discussions, one about the divine, one about morality, they seem separate, but they're actually deeply connected. We'll try to show how reimagining the divine can actually pave the way for a more grounded, more accountable, and yeah, ultimately more empowering morality right here.
I like that framing, making intellectual sense. Because, yeah, these aren't easy questions, are they? So to kick us off, you mentioned this really striking analogy from the source material, one that kind of rethinks our whole relationship with the creator. It's probably not what most people expect. I'm really interested to hear it. Can you set the scene for us?
Yeah, it's an analogy I find incredibly helpful, especially for getting a handle on the sheer scale we might be talking about. And it gives us a framework, right, for thinking about a creator without automatically putting humans right at the top. So imagine, if you will, a huge soccer field, a really massive one, or, if you prefer, maybe a vast cricket field, stretching out perfect green grass under the huge sky.
Okay, got it. Big field, lots of grass.
Right. Now, picture an ant. Tiny little thing, living its whole life down there in the grass, its whole world. From the ant's perspective, its universe is this incredible green expanse. It sees the earth, the roots, the grass blades towering over it, maybe a pebble here and there. And it might, quite reasonably, look around at this world, which seems perfectly suited for its colony, and think, wow, what an amazing universe. All this must have been made just for me, for us ants.
Makes sense from its perspective. Limited view assumes it's the center.
Precisely. The ant, limited by its tiny scale, its narrow perception, it naturally assumes it's the focal point, the reason for it all. Now let's zoom way out. To the human perspective, why was that field actually created?
Right. Not for the ants.
Not at all. It was designed, planted, maintained for something completely different. Sports. Games, crowds cheering, human activity. The humans who built it, who play on it, they probably don't even notice the ant. The ant is just incidental, part of the scenery maybe.
Yeah.
Totally irrelevant to the main purpose of the field.
Okay, yeah, that's incredibly vivid. And I think I see where you're going. It definitely challenges our usual human-centric view.
Exactly. That's how I see us in relation to the creator. Look, we grapple with these questions: existence, origin, purpose. It's natural. And for me, acknowledging a creator, well, it seems logical. Everything has a source, right? A starting point, an ultimate cause. Even with science, you always end up asking, okay, but what came before that?
Yeah, the ultimate regression problem.
Right. So yes, I'd argue there is a creator. But, and this is the core of the analogy, that creator, like the humans building the field, might be operating at an unbelievably high level with purposes so vast, so encompassing that we humans, our civilizations, our planet, everything, we might just be a byproduct.
The byproduct, wow.
Yeah. We're part of the creation, absolutely. A complex, maybe even miraculous part, but not necessarily the center of the creator's story. Our existence, our whole universe, could be an incidental outcome of some much grander design or process we can't even fathom. It's not saying we're unimportant, just that the creator's scope might be immeasurably larger than just us.
That is such a radical idea compared to, the view many of us grew up with humanity as the pinnacle, the focus of divine attention. I can see how some people might hear byproduct and feel, well, kind of insignificant, like just an ant in someone else's game. How do you deal with that feeling?
That's a really crucial question, and it's a natural reaction, I think. But I actually argue the opposite. It's profoundly empowering. Think about it. What does this all mean for you, for us? It means we challenge that ingrained assumption that the creator's main job, or only job, is worrying about our daily lives, our specific rules, our individual prayers.
Okay.
If the creator's purposes are truly cosmic, maybe operating across dimensions or universes we can't even imagine, then our existence is maybe like a ripple in a vast ocean. Does that diminish the wonder of our lives? I don't think so. It just puts it in a much bigger context. Awe-inspiring, maybe even indifferent, but still amazing. The best case for this distant creator idea is that it actually frees us from expecting divine intervention for every little thing.
Takes the pressure off, in a way.
Exactly. Removes the pressure of needing to be the cosmic center.
Yeah.
And paradoxically, that gives us incredible agency. If the creator isn't micromanaging our lives, then the responsibility for meaning, for progress, for ethics, that falls squarely on us. It's a call to humility, sure, but also a call to take charge. It says, okay, the big stage is set, now you figure out the play.
That idea of a creator operating on such a huge scale where we're almost an afterthought, it feels both ancient and really modern. It's a strong argument for a detached but ultimate source. Has this kind of middle ground view, creator exists, but we're not. The main project popped up elsewhere in history.
Oh,
Look,
look, you've really hit on something important there. It's timelessness. This isn't brand new. It's more like a reframing of these old struggles with understanding the divine. If you look back, say, to ancient Greece, you get figures like Plato.
Plato, okay.
Yeah. In his dialogues, particularly the Timaeus, he talks about the demiurge. Now, Plato's demiurge isn't like the all-powerful personal god you find in, say, the Abrahamic faiths. He's more like a divine craftsman, an artisan.
Craftsman.
Right. The idea is the demiurge looked at these eternal, perfect forms, these ideals, and then, using pre-existing chaotic matter, he ordered the cosmos, brought structure, beauty, mathematical principles to the chaos. Think about that. It was a vast, purposeful act, setting up the universe, the laws of physics, the movement of stars. But was he worrying about whether some guy in Athens paid his taxes? Probably not. His focus was the grand structure, the cosmic order.
So he sets it up, establishes the rules, and then lets it run.
Pretty much. The universe unfolds according to the rational principles he embedded in it. The parallels to the ants in a soccer field are pretty clear, right? Grand architect, cosmic design, but not focused on the tiny details of our lives.
Yeah, I can definitely see the lineage there. Not hands-on day-to-day involvement, but foundational, system level.
Exactly. And then if you jump forward thousands of years, right up to modern times, this idea of us being part of a larger, maybe unintended outcome, it pops up again in really interesting ways. Think about something like the simulation hypothesis.
The idea that we're living in a computer simulation.
Right. And it's not just sci-fi anymore. Serious philosophers, some scientists, they explore this idea. The core concept is maybe our whole reality, everything we see, feel, experience, is just a really sophisticated simulation created by some advanced civilization. In that scenario, we could just be, well, byproducts of their experiment. Or maybe a historical simulation, or even entertainment for them.
So we'd be like characters in their very complex video game.
Sort of. We'd be part of their project. Our consciousness, our history, everything, an outcome of their purpose, their computing power. Just like the ants are an unintended consequence of the soccer field, we might be a secondary outcome of some vast simulation. It raises huge questions about free will, purpose, doesn't it? Our agency might be real within the simulation, but secondary to the simulation's creator's goals.
That's a really striking modern parallel. It makes the abstract byproduct idea feel a bit more graspable, even if it's still way out there. A fascinating thought experiment.
It really is. And what it highlights is this whole spectrum of belief about creators. It stands in sharp contrast to many traditional theologies. Think about Islam, Christianity. They typically describe a personal God, one who's not just the creator, but is intimately involved, listens to prayers, gives specific moral codes, intervenes in history. Often, humanity is placed right at the center of that divine story.
Yeah, the focus is very much on the human-divine relationship.
Definitely. And even within those traditions, you find huge debates. Christianity, for instance, has the Trinity God as Father, Son, Holy Spirit, 3 persons, 1 God. That's a complex idea about the nature of the divine that some find hard to square with strict monotheism. Or in Hinduism, you have dharma, righteous conduct, moral law, duty often seen as divinely ordained, linking human actions directly to cosmic divine order. So the point is, ideas about the creator are incredibly diverse. Our ants in a field analogy is just offering one coherent spot on that spectrum.
So your view, the one the analogy illustrates, it really sits somewhere in the middle, doesn't it? There is a creator, a source, but maybe not one whose main project is us. Less divine parent, more cosmic engineer.
That's a good way to put it, a crucial distinction. And if you connect this to the bigger picture, it forces us to question our assumptions. What must a creator be like? We tend to project human traits onto the divine interest, needs, demands. The analogy helps us imagine a creator so grand our concerns might be, well, infinitesimal in comparison. Think about it. How does rethinking the creator's involvement change your view on free will, destiny, even prayer?
Yeah, does prayer become less like talking to a parent and more like meditating within this vast system?
Perhaps. It shifts the burden, doesn't it? The burden of our existence, our choices. It moves from divine decree, maybe, towards human responsibility, finding purpose not handed down by the creator, but discovered within the creation we inhabit.
That's a really profound shift. Belief in a creator, but without the weight of constant divine oversight. And if we really take that immense scale seriously, it leads right into the big questions in cosmology, doesn't it? The Big Bang, multiverse theories. How do these huge scientific ideas fit with this picture of a distant, grand architect creator? Do they explain away the creator or just push the mystery back?
That's exactly the right question. And I'd argue these big cosmological ideas actually complement the analogy. They reinforce the idea of an ultimate source. Take the Big Bang, our best scientific understanding, right? Describes how our universe began, this hot, dense point expanding rapidly about 13.8 billion years ago. Forms all the stuff we see.
Gives us an origin story for this universe.
For this one, yes. Then you have the multiverse hypothesis, which suggests our universe is maybe just one of many, possibly infinite universes, bubbling up in some larger cosmic landscape. It's a compelling idea. Could explain why our universe seems so fine-tuned for life if there are countless universes. Some are bound to get the settings right just by chance.
Okay, so multiple universes maybe.
Maybe. But here's the kicker, the crucial point that brings us back to the creator idea. Even if you accept the Big Bang, even if you accept the multiverse, you still have to ask, what caused the Big Bang? What created the multiverse itself?
Oh, right. The question just gets bigger.
Exactly. That fundamental mystery doesn't vanish. It just shifts to a new, grander level. Science pushes back the frontiers of how things happened, explains the mechanics within our observable reality, but it keeps hitting this deeper, maybe metaphysical question of ultimate origin. Every layer of creation we uncover seems to point towards a source, a cause that lies beyond the physical stuff we can currently measure or theorize about. It's that philosophical, what came before everything question.
So even with our best science, we hit this limit, this point beyond current understanding that still suggests something more, an ultimate source. Science tells us how, maybe, but not why there's anything here at all.
Precisely. And that's where the analogy helps again, grasping the sheer scale. The creator might have built something much, much bigger than our Big Bang, bigger than any multiverse we can imagine. Our entire cosmic reality, as vast as it seems to us, could just be one tiny part of an even grander creation.
Like the ants trying to map the whole stadium when they only know their patch of grass.
Exactly. We're like those ants, right? Diligently mapping every blade of grass, every pebble, maybe even figuring out the boundaries of the soccer field. But the creator, the architect, they built the stadium. Maybe the whole city the stadium is in. Maybe the whole planet of stadiums. Our attempts to grasp the ultimate origin, even with powerful telescopes and accelerators, are still limited by our ant-like perspective. We're trying to map a stadium with tools made for grass. We can understand the mechanics within our cosmic field, but grasping the ultimate who or what behind the whole stadium, that remains a deep mystery. It really forces a sense of humility.
Yeah, that raises a big question for me, maybe for you listening. How does acknowledging that vastness, those limits on what we can know, how does that affect your sense of humility and wonder? For me, it's kind of humbling, makes you feel small, but also connected to something just immense.
Yeah.
Inspiring almost.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely highlights the boundaries of knowledge.
It's exactly that humility, that acknowledgement of our limits that's so vital. Science is amazing. It lets us peer back almost to the beginning of our time. But that beginning is still a point within some larger context we don't fully grasp. We're like those deep sea explorers finding a whole ecosystem, unaware it's just one puddle on a vast continent. The ultimate why, the what came before. That remains profound, and science, by its nature focusing on the observable within the system, might never fully answer it. This isn't anti-science at all. It's about recognizing its current boundaries when tackling ultimate origins. It fosters intellectual humility, I think, and wonder. Keeps us curious about the mysteries beyond our current reach. Reminds us there's always more to learn, more to imagine. Our understanding is always evolving, always incomplete.
Okay, so we've got this picture. A grand creator, immense scale, maybe not directly focused on us day to day. That's a huge shift. Now let's pivot to something maybe even more immediate, more impactful for us. Ethics. If the creator isn't handing down a divine rule book, if there's no cosmic instruction manual dropped from the sky, then where do our morals actually come from, our sense of right and wrong? This really cuts against a very common assumption, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And this is where understanding that distant creator really informs our ethics in a powerful way. Traditionally, right, in most major religions, the view is clear. Morality comes from divine command. Think Ten Commandments, Sharia law, Dharma. These are seen as eternal laws handed down from God or the divine. A clear framework, often with promises of reward or punishment.
The ultimate authority gives the rules.
Exactly. But if we lean into this idea of a distant creator operating at that vast scale, maybe seeing us like ants in the field, then it starts to seem less likely that this creator is dictating specific rules for how we treat each other or solving our ethical dilemmas. So that suggests a different origin for our moral codes, one that actually empowers us. If we embrace that perspective, the source material suggests a really compelling alternative, maybe the best case for a self-generated morality. Ethics comes from something much closer to home, observable, intrinsic. It comes from our survival and our cooperation.
Survival cooperation ethics. SCE. I like how direct that sounds. So it's not just a name, it's the core principle. But, okay, playing devil's advocate here, doesn't a purely pragmatic ethics risk becoming, relative? Whatever works, goes. Doesn't it lack the moral force of a divine command? What's the answer to that?
That's a really important challenge, and it gets right to why SCE isn't relativistic in that sense. It's grounded in objective reality.
Right.
SCE isn't some arbitrary list of rules from nowhere. It's a framework built on something we can actually see empirically.
Yeah.
Ethical principles emerge because groups that cooperate, that work together effectively, they just do better. They survive and thrive more consistently than groups that are constantly fighting or are purely self-serving.
So it's practical, based on outcomes.
It's practical, it's evolutionary, it's pragmatic, but it has real measurable outcomes. The moral force isn't from a divine threat, it's from the absolute necessity of collective well-being for survival. And the evidence for this, it's robust, comes from lots of fields. First, evolution itself.
Yeah.
Cooperative behaviors across so many species boost survival rates. Think wolf packs hunting together, herd animals protecting their young, ants and bees with their complex societies.
Cooperation is an evolutionary advantage.
Absolutely. Individuals might be weaker alone, but together, sharing tasks, protecting each other, the whole group, the species, flourishes. It's about collective survival. Then there's game theory, the math of strategic interactions.
Right, like the prisoner's dilemma.
Exactly. Game theory consistently shows that in situations where you interact repeatedly, cooperative strategies often lead to the best long-term results for everyone involved. Even when pure self-interest looks tempting in the short run, think of two fishing villages. If both overfish, constantly defecting the fish stocks collapse, everyone loses. If they agree to limits, cooperating both thrive long-term. It's often the smartest, most rational strategy. Cooperation leads to stability, sustained benefits.
It's mathematically sound, not just nice.
Precisely. And finally, look at history. It's a huge laboratory for this. Societies that fostered cooperation through trade, shared laws, mutual defense, social safety nets, they tended to innovate, endure, expand. Societies torn apart by internal conflict, extreme inequality, constant war, they often collapsed or got overtaken. From early farming communities sharing food to modern states built on social contracts. History tells this story again and again. Think about global health efforts today. Eradicating smallpox, trying to coordinate on pandemics. No single nation does that alone. It demands massive cooperation, resource sharing, driven by the need for human survival. Cooperation sustains us. It's not just an ideal someone told us to follow. It's an imperative baked into our reality.
So, okay, think about this. What does this mean for you? Does framing ethics this way make it feel more tangible, more within our control, maybe even more urgent? It really grounds morality in something we can see and do rather than just receive. It's not just following rules, but understanding why those rules are crucial for us all, especially if the cosmic architect isn't giving us the playbook.
Exactly. SCE gives us a practical, observable basis for morals. It moves beyond relying on divine dictates we can't prove. It's not blind faith. It's rational assessment of what actually helps humans flourish. And the fact that cooperation is so universal, across cultures, even species, that suggests there's a deep inherent truth here. It tells us our moral compass isn't some random gift, it's a tool we've forged ourselves, through the very struggle to exist and thrive together. It's a powerful case for a human-centric, yet universally applicable, moral code.
That's a really solid foundation for ethics then, rooted in observation and the need for collective survival. So let's take this further. If we were to actually use survival cooperation ethics to, say, rewrite some foundational rules, let's call them a modern 10 Commandments, just for the sake of argument, what would they look like? How would they guide us, assuming this distant creator scenario where we are generating morality for our collective good? If the architect isn't giving the ants the rule book, what rules would the ants create for themselves to keep the game going, maybe even make it better?
That's a great challenge and a really useful exercise, I think, to make these principles concrete, actionable, especially if we're taking responsibility for our own moral path. So the 10 Commandments of SCE, they might look something like this. Each one aimed at fostering collective well-being, long-term survival, knowing we're the ones responsible. 1. Preserve life. Simple, foundational. Don't kill, because survival depends on life. This isn't just abstractly moral, it's deeply pragmatic. Killing destabilizes everything. It threatens the individual, sure, but also the group.
Right, loss of potential creates fear.
Exactly. Think about high crime areas or war zones. Cooperation breaks down, progress halts. Life is the basic unit. Without it, there's no cooperation possible. If the creator isn't intervening, preserving life becomes our absolute baseline, the foundation we choose to build on. 2. Value honesty. Meaning, trust is essential for cooperation. Lies just corrode everything. If you can't trust people, agreements mean nothing, business fails, collaboration becomes impossible.
Society grinds to a halt without trust.
Totally. Imagine legal systems, economies, even just relationships built on lies. It unravels. Honesty is the bedrock of working together. 3. Respect agreements, basically. Keep promises to build stability. Agreements, contracts, treaties, even just your word, they let us plan, invest, rely on each other for complex long-term things. Think about international relations when treaties are broken. Chaos. Broken promises destroy trust, hinder future cooperation. Our global systems depend on this.
Okay, life, honesty, agreements. Makes sense. What's next?
4. Share resources. The principle. Fairness sustains groups. Hoarding by a few while many lack necessities. That breeds resentment, unrest, eventually rebellion. It compromises the group's cohesion. Revolutions often stem from huge inequality. Think about climate change impacts today disproportionately hitting the poor due to unequal resource use. Fair distribution gives everyone a stake, fosters loyalty, stability. 5. Care for the vulnerable, meaning strong groups protect their weakest members. This isn't just charity, it's smart self-preservation. A group is only as stable as its weakest part.
Like a chain in its weakest link.
Exactly. Neglecting the sick, elderly, poor creates instability. Disease can spread, it drains resources, it weakens the whole group's resilience. Caring for the vulnerable shows the group's strength and cohesion. Think about societies with strong safety nets versus those without. 6. Limit greed. This is the flip side of sharing. Hoarding destroys cooperation. Individual ambition can be good, sure, drives innovation, but excessive accumulation at others' expense, that's poison. It leads to exploitation, massive inequality, destroys the cooperative spirit. The 2008 financial crisis, a stark example of unchecked greed devastating everyone. It's the opposite of communal well-being.
So manage individual impulses for the group's sake.
In essence, yes. Then, 7, resolve conflicts peacefully. Because violence breaks survival bonds. War, aggression. The costs are immense. Human lives, resources, infrastructure, trust, all destroyed. Look at ongoing conflicts today or major wars in history. Devastating. Finding nonviolent ways, dialogue, negotiation, mediation is crucial for maintaining cohesion and progress. 8. Seek knowledge, rationale. Understanding improves survival. Ignorance leads to bad decisions, missed chances, inability to adapt, learning. Innovation, critical for long-term survival.
From farming techniques to medicine.
Right. Think how quickly science moved on COVID, thanks to global knowledge sharing. Suppressing knowledge leads to stagnation, vulnerability. 9. Respect the earth, because simply survival depends on the environment. Our species' survival is directly tied to the planet's health, destroying resources, polluting, destabilizing ecosystems. It's collective self-harm.
Climate change being the obvious, urgent example.
Absolutely. Sustainable practices aren't optional. They're ethically essential for our existence. And finally, 10. Think beyond self, meaning cooperation thrives when we look beyond our ego. Pure self-interest just undermines collaboration. Recognizing we're interdependent, contributing to the common good, that's the ultimate act of cooperative survival. Think of community efforts after disasters or scientists sharing research. It moves us from just individual struggle to a collective journey. We define our purpose together.
Wow. That's a really compelling set of principles. So clear, so rooted in observable outcomes, in human flourishing. Each point has such obvious consequences if ignored. Where do you think as a society we struggle most with these? What's the biggest hurdle?
Well, what's fascinating, right, is how many of these principles you or anyone listening probably already lives by instinctively. We know lying is generally bad, violence is destructive, helping others is good. SCE just gives the solid empirical why.
It explains the instinct.
Exactly. The biggest struggle, I suspect it's number 10. Think beyond self. Our evolution also gave us self-preservation instincts, tribalism. It makes it hard to extend cooperation beyond our immediate circle, family, community, nation. Short-term individual or national gain often wins out over long-term collective good, even when the evidence for cooperation is overwhelming.
Which leads to failures in sharing resources or resolving conflicts peacefully on a global scale.
Precisely. SCE turns abstract morals into actionable ethics. For daily life, business, politics, global challenges. They aren't just nice ideas, they're requirements for us to keep going, to flourish. A practical roadmap for our shared future.
We have covered so much ground today. Really, from the edge of the cosmos, the nature of a distant creator, right down to the nuts and bolts of human morality derived from our own needs. So just to bring it all together, let's quickly recap the core ideas from this deep dive. First, this view of the creator. An ultimate source, yeah, but operating at such a high level that maybe humanity isn't the main point. Like ants in that soccer field, part of a grand design, but maybe not its sole focus. And second, the origin of ethics. Making a strong case for grounding our morality, not in divine commands necessarily, but in the real-world needs of our survival and our ability to cooperate.
That's a perfect summary, yeah. And it's so important to stress that the byproduct idea, the ants in the field idea, it might sound diminishing at first glance, insignificant, but it does the opposite. It actually hands us this immense, profound responsibility. It's really the best case argument for human agency, for human purpose.
How so? Explain that connection again.
Well, if the ultimate creator is operating at that vast scale, with purposes way beyond our immediate concerns, then it follows logically, doesn't it, that the creator might not be directly involved in the specifics of human society, our squabbles, our ethical choices day to day, so the burden, or maybe the privilege, the imperative, falls squarely on us. Since the creator might not be directly concerned with us, we absolutely must be concerned with each other.
Ah, the responsibility falls to us because the oversight isn't there.
Exactly. Our ethics, our well-being, our future, our survival, that becomes our project, our responsibility. We're the stewards of our own moral universe, the architects of our cooperative destiny. It's not a passive role waiting for instructions. It's an active, empowering call. Create meaning, create order, create compassion in this corner of the universe. The creator might have just set the stage, established the physical laws, but the play, that's up to us. It gives us huge agency, turns cosmic indifference, potentially, into an empowering mandate for us to care for each other, to act collectively. It redefines purpose not as something given, but something chosen, something we build.
That is a genuinely powerful takeaway. It really shifts the dynamic. From passive receivers of rules to active co-creators of our ethical future. It emphasizes our power to shape our world. So what does that mean for individual action? The choices we make every single day.
It means everything. This framework gives humanity immense agency, right down to the individual. Every time you choose honesty, respect and agreement, care for someone vulnerable,
Right.
you're not just following a rule, you're actively weaving the fabric that holds society together, that ensures we flourish.
Makes everyday choices feel significant.
They are significant. It empowers those choices. It's not always about grand gestures. It's about consistently applying these principles in our interactions, our communities, our global outlook. And if ethics is fundamentally about cooperation for survival, then tackling the huge global challenges we face, climate change, inequality, conflict, those aren't just political issues or economic issues anymore. They become immediate, undeniable ethical imperatives, rooted in our very survival.
Because failing to cooperate on them threatens everyone's survival.
Precisely. Our ability to cooperate, to think beyond ourselves, to actually implement these principles of survival cooperation ethics. It's not just a nice to have, it's literally a matter of life and death for our species. It's a direct call to action for every single one of us to build a more just, sustainable world together, recognizing that on our particular field, we're the ones responsible for how the game plays out. Hashtag outro direction.
What an incredible deep dive.
Yeah.
Truly thought-provoking and, yeah, ultimately really empowering. Thank you for joining us on this journey today, unpacking the universe's grand design and maybe our own self-made ethical blueprint. I really encourage you, everyone listening, explore the survival cooperation ethics framework more. Think about it. Consider how it plays out in your own life and the world around you. And here's a final thought to leave you with. If our ethics are fundamentally about survival and cooperation, what's the single greatest challenge we face right now as a global society that demands a collective, cooperative solution from us, without waiting for any external guidance? Something to mull over. Until next time, stay curious and stay compassionate.